Welcome to the Numbers Game. I'm Jace and I'm joined by Nick and Marty. How are we going today, guys?
Going well, thanks, Jace. Penny Lane, my dog, has gone through a change of life, and I've had to put her in the garage for various different reasons, so it's been a very challenging week. I'd forgotten that she was a female. Things happen as females grow up, and it's and the house is a little bit less orderly than Colleen and the family would like it. And I feel like a very bad parent because as soon as this has happened, I thought I would have dealt with this a bit more effectively as a parent. And she's in the garage and it was 0 degrees, and now she has a nappy on. And this is a very unusual circumstance, boys. Didn't think I'd ever have to come across this with the dog, and I don't think I've handled it well. So I'm just trying to come to terms with that as a parent of a dog owner. So if any other dog owners are out there, reach out. I know I could do better, and I need to do better. She still gets fed, and but that's where I'm at.
Not sure what else could have you have done?
I don't know. I just didn't expect. I just didn't expect
look at you.
it.
You actually look traumatised.
I am traumatised because
I feel
Charlie was just as traumatised. Colleen goes, this is what happens at 9 months of age for a dog, a female dog. So it's been a real learning curve this week. So I've got a lot of growing up to do as a dog parent. So feedback would be appreciated. I've done as well as I can, boys.
I have a mate of mine who just went through a similar situation. He actually attempted to get the dog desexed. He actually went to the vet, and the vet said, you have to bring the dog in on this day and we'll desex her. Anyway, so he takes the dog in that day, and then they said it's too late. She's, already done whatever they do. I don't even know what the words are. You would know, Marty. So you have to take her home, and you'll have to bring her in next time. And he's like, you're kidding. You guys gave me the date. And they said, yeah, we did, but we made a mistake. So he had a female dog on heat that was leaving a mess everywhere, and he said was incredibly clingy.
Yes,
to him, not to anyone else but him.
Yeah, I've become the favourite, and I've got 5 bull mastiffs at the front of the garage barking. So my world is in chaos. I don't know what has happened, and apparently I don't get a chance to fix this for another 6 months.
So take you back to your younger years, Marty, when you're strutting down the Yarra Valley and all the young girls were just, watching you walk past because that bit of COVID guy.
Yeah, but I wasn't putting people in cages. So that would be a whole different discussion and probably some jail time. But
must feel
very
good.
interesting week. Very interesting week as a dog owner. So all I can do is apologise to all the sensible dog owners there. But I'm learning. I'm learning by doing, and still loving and caring. Jace, how are you? How's your animals?
Mate, I just don't even know what direction to go from here. We've got what I coin as our shitty little cat, but she keeps Case happy. She sleeps on her chest every night. Bit of an issue with that, but Case is happy. That's fine. That's all that matters. The cat's happy most of the time. If you don't pat her and don't pick her up, she actually hates being patted or picked up. She'll hiss at you. She'll try and scratch you. She hates visitors. But animals just obviously really great for all of us at the moment. Great. I was actually going to say, side note before we got distracted with your animal stories was...
Sorry, mate.
No, all good. Checked out Alba. I don't know if and this is not a sponsor, but just I wasn't sure if you guys have seen the Mornington Peninsula Hot Springs, and then across the road, Alba Hot Springs opened up.
I've been there.
Oh, cool. Yeah, well, I don't know your thoughts, but I was blown away by it. Compared to the usual hot springs that I found a bit just, I don't know, been there, done that and whatever. But Alba was very, very luxe, very nice. We did the dine and bathe, $100 Sunday evening package or something. And it was awesome. Wasn't busy. All the pools were really clean. The food was immaculate. We had a group of 6 and we just had a bloody blast. So guys, that's my latest exciting thing that I've done, and I came into the week feeling relaxed and re-energized. So happy days.
Good.
I put some salt in the bath, so that was as close as I got to a hot spring. But sounds nice, mate. Sounds very nice.
Nico, how are you? And what's happening today?
I'm
just a
going
little
all
snippo?
right. Yeah, I'm going all right. What I'll talk about today, yeah, I'm going well. I'm batching at the moment. My wife's been away for almost a week and a half, so I'm, I guess, the cat sitter at the moment. We have a ragdoll cat, so quite the opposite to yours, Jace. Extremely clingy, wants to be held and wants to be loved. So she usually sleeps next to my wife, underneath my wife, and wherever it's warm. So it's a bit of a different experience with me because she gets locked in the front bedroom when I go to bed, and she gets let out when I wake up.
What is it with blokes and locking animals away in a cage or a room?
Oh, there's a nice bed and stuff in there for her, but I can't stand
sure.
having her wake me up in the middle of the night. Like, it's just,
I can't stand.
well, no, I do enjoy the cat, and I was not a cat person until we got this cat, but I draw the line at it waking me up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. That's, we all know how important sleep is, but
Oh, God.
so anyway, the cat loves me at the moment, but it's because I'm the only one in the house. I'm sure deep down she's disgruntled with the sleeping arrangements. But other than that, everything's good.
I must say I'm exactly the same, Nick. And when Case goes away, that's the one time Flo really wants to get to know me. But I'm a twitcher in my sleep. If something touches me, I kind of have to throw it off or twitch. And one day the cat curled up at the bottom of my feet, and I extended my feet out really quick, and I heard a thud, and it was the cat had travelled a metre from the bed to the apartment window and hit the window on the full, and I woke up to this thud noise. And you know when like a cat or an animal goes to run really fast, but they're trying to run so fast they can't grip their claws and feet? I just heard and that was her. She finally gripped the carpet and bolted out the room, and I went, oh, I know what I've done here. I've kicked that cat. And she's never, that was 3 years ago, and she's never slept on me or near me ever since.
I just find it ridiculous. Like, why would you let the cat wake you up all night? Like, at what stage do you not want to get a good night's sleep? Like, and because cats don't just sleep 6-7 hours. Like, they'll come and sleep next to your head. They wake you up. Then they'll get up and they'll go to eat. They actually eat all through the night. So cats are notorious
Grazers.
for, it's like every time like you get woken up, it's like.
So apologies to the
cat somewhere else.
RSPCA or North Melbourne Lost Dogs and Cats Home. If you were trying to adopt out some cats, Nick and I are not the people that are basically going to have you getting cats taken.
Mate, 100 years ago, they were sleeping up the top of trees. So I'm sure the front room in our house on a couch with a blanket, I'm sure she's more than okay.
I was exactly thinking that. We had story time the other night. Dog's on the bed in a nappy, like as warm as can be, just looking lovingly. And I'm just going, yeah, exactly that. 100 years ago, you just would have been out in the bush trying to catch a mouse.
Anyway, good banter.
Let's get on. Let's get on with it.
Tommy, our producer, will be wrapped with that.
Yeah.
But now for the hook. So I'm going to talk about property and the perfect storm that's happening at the moment. So what we're seeing at the moment is a property market react in a very odd way based on what's happening. And we all know that interest rates are going up, and that's been done to death. But I read a really simple article from John McGrath, who's the CEO of McGrath Real Estate, and a very, very smart man when it comes to the property market, and gets a really good read on the entire market because of the amount of franchises or offices that they own. So I found this article was really good, really simple, just gave some really clear direction on why we are experiencing what we are experiencing at the moment, which is an increasing rate cycle alongside an increasing property cycle. So going to unpack that and explain, why property hasn't gone backwards and we haven't had the crash like everyone thought that we would. So thoughts, gents? Good topic.
Amazing. Great topic. Looking forward to unpacking it. And today, just for fun, this episode is actually brought to you by Future Advisory and Innovate, the teams that both support the Numbers Game podcast. If you haven't got around to following the Numbers Game podcast on Instagram and LinkedIn, go and do that now, but also show some support and love to Future Advisory and Innovate. You'll be able to find them on all socials, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Just get around it, give a follow. Plenty of free value, valuable content. We share lots of news and stories that helps you in your day-to-day life and your business life as well. So get around our show sponsors. It's what helps the numbers game keep on going. Nick, exciting. I am actually in the hunt for a property. So anything property market under supply is exciting. I've decided that I've finally listened to all of the advice and things that you guys have shared over the last, 2 years of doing a podcast and me sitting on the sidelines going, I don't know, buying a property, what's going on. Always interested in insights on what's happening. So over to you, mate.
Yeah, and I think what I'm going to talk about now, it really underpins something that we say a lot, not just I've said on this podcast, but inside of our business. But when is the right time to buy a property? Now, as long as it's the right property and you can afford that property, the right time to buy that property is now. And what we're seeing now is just a fantastic example of that, because there's so many people that were on the sidelines through COVID that thought, you know what, the market's going to crash by 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%. Lots of doomsdays out there. I know one guy that went and bought a caravan, sold his house, bought a caravan, was going to buy back in because he was a magician, was going to save all this money. Hasn't happened. We're actually seeing the opposite happen at the moment. And granted, it might not be as buoyant as it is now from a price point of view for the next 12 months, depending on what happens. But whilst there is low stock, which is what's happening now, you've got macroeconomics, supply and demand. What happens when there's less supply and high demand? Price goes up. So the main issue at the moment, and this is particularly in Melbourne I'm talking about, is low stock. So there's just not enough houses to buy. And no doubt people at home listening would be doing what I do, and which is sitting on the couch at night at times, just having a quick look at realestate.com, what's happening in my suburb. Oh, geez, I wouldn't mind moving there. I might check that suburb out. I wouldn't mind a holiday house. I might check out what's happening down the peninsula. And most people would be seeing that and seeing that there's no properties coming on, or they'd be constantly seeing the same properties come up over and over again. And this has been something that's been happening for the last 12 months. There's just not a great deal of stock on the market. And there's three key reasons as to why that is. First reason, which we all know, because it was spoken about so much, is an extended period of high construction costs. So high construction costs, labour shortages, builders going broke, all of this caused a halt of not just houses being built, but also houses being contracted to be built. So someone buys a block of land, someone then goes to build a house. No one wanted to build a house or sign a new contract with a builder in the last 12 months. Now, granted, some people would have, but they would have felt very very nervous about doing that. So that slows building down. But what happens to those people that would have hypothetically gone and built a house and land package? They still need a roof over their head. So they're then going to deviate back to the established market. So instead of going out to a greenfield area, you've got people moving back into that established market, and buying the house that's sort of 30, 40 k's out of the city, which was already established. So that then takes away some supply. Second thing you've got is migration. So we're well and truly into this migration lift at the moment, and they're estimating 715,000 new migrants into the country over the next 2 years. Now that is net migration. So that takes into consideration people leaving, so people coming out, people going. We'll have a net increase of 715,000 people, and these people are all going to need to live somewhere. Now, traditionally what would happen is those people would come into the country, they would rent for 2 to 3, maybe 4 to 5 years whilst they got their bearings. What's happening at the moment is there's an undersupplied rental properties. So they're coming to the country and they're finding it really difficult to rent. And they're saying, okay, well, that's so difficult, I might as well buy. They want to buy houses. That reduces the supply or increases the demand. So again, you've got another factor increasing the demand, which then is increasing the supply. The third one to talk about, and a lot of people wouldn't be thinking about this, but we know this being in our business, is it's actually really hard to level up with your house at the moment. And what I mean by that is someone who spent $1 million on a house 6 years ago decides, okay, I want a new house. I've got the third child's come along. We've bought the new car. We need a fourth bedroom. We want to level up. We need to spend 1.5. Because the interest rates have gone up, people's serviceability has come down. So a lot of people are actually stuck at their current borrowing limit. So yes, they might have a house worth 1.5 with some equity, so they've got the deposit to buy for 1.5, but they no longer have the serviceability from the bank's point of view to get a loan for that amount. So they're kind of stuck where they are because they can't get approved for the same amount of borrowing that they did, call it 5, 6, 7 years ago. Now, what impact that has, it means they don't list their house on the market to sell, which is a negative effect to supply. So these are the three of the key reasons that you've got not much property coming onto the market, and when it does come onto the market, you've got a lot of people that are there to buy it. A couple other reasons which I found really interesting in John's article, but cash buyers. So obviously there's interest rates, and interest rates are doing what they're doing, and they're impacting people. 25% of the properties sold in the year 2022 on the east coast of Australia were paid for with cash.
Stop it.
Fact.
Wow.
So these are people that are not impacted by interest rates. So we're talking about the interest rate impact. And I've heard a stat before, and Marty, you'll back me up here, but I think it's only a third of the properties in the country are actually mortgaged.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people that aren't even impacted by these rate rises. So, Jace, I'll ask you a question. Why do you think we have cash buyers?
Oh, mate, that's blowing my mind. I'd say people that have retired, paid off their homes, sell. They've got the cash to downsize to buy another property.
Spot on. That's a big one.
That's the big one.
Downsizers. Downsizers selling a house in the city or selling the big family home. Downsizing. They've got cash. They're retired. There's all of the baby boomers now are starting to retire, so that whole baby boomer population is coming through. They're selling their family homes and they're snapping up houses for cash, not impacted by the interest rate. So they're not adding to that negative flow, I guess. The other one is city dwellers that are moving regional. So city people coming in with cash, not impacted by interest rates. And there's the other one that's starting to come back is overseas buyers. So overseas buyers coming back in, immigration is back, students coming back in, which means overseas buyers are now looking to buy property again. So, yeah, we think about interest rates, but what about the people that don't actually have a mortgage? Well, they've still got the ability to buy. They haven't been impacted at all. And if anything, they're helping push prices up because they're not impacted by mortgages. The other one is strong employment. So people are still earning really good money. We're going through our annual salary review for all of our staff in this office at the moment. Most people are getting pay rises because that's what the market is doing. So yes, the interest rates are going up, but we've talked before about the dual income families. Dual income families are still in a really strong position. They've still got a lot of levers to pull as far as expenses go, and they can still manage interest rates of 5%, 5.5%, 6%, which is what they're creeping up to now. So it's not all doom and gloom because the interest rates are going up. There's still a really high demand, and there's people that are not that impacted by interest rates at this point in time. So high demand, low stock, prices are getting pushed up, which is why we've got this, call it perfect storm at the moment, which isn't really adding up, and why you're getting this contrast to what people think should be happening, which is people should be selling properties at reduced prices and big crashes.
Nick, is there a solution? Or when can you see this changing? What's the longer term outlook? I mean, if there's low stock, people are struggling to get into the market, and low stock, Sydney, Melbourne, those kind of markets. Is there anything you can see that's going to kind of swing the needle, change the dial? Like what's
short term? No, definitely not short term.
Yeah. So this is some pain to go through right now. If you're looking for a property, the stock levels are low, and that's.
I think it's very much property dependent. So, to change a supply issue, you need to change policy. And the issue at the moment is it's too costly to build property. It's too costly to build new greenfield estates. The Vic government is in so much debt because of all of the greenfield estates that have been built. That requires infrastructure, that requires tunnels, that requires freeways. The cost to build a property at the moment is so expensive. So we need to find ways to deliver supply at a cheaper level, and that's very much government based. And as we all know, things don't happen and policies don't change quickly in government. So firstly, you need to change policy, and I know they're talking about it at the moment, but then you need that impact to flow through, and that can take years and years, right? Couple with that the fact that migration is not stopping. So it's not like you're stopping the amount of people that want to buy and you're adding supply in. The people who want to buy is still growing. There will be some relief, and you're probably seeing that in Sydney at the moment, particularly in the outskirts, the western suburbs and whatnot. What we're seeing is a lot of investors, we spoke about this a few episodes ago, a lot of investors are starting to sell. So that's definitely going to bring stock onto the market.
It's true.
And that's definitely going to create some opportunities for first homeowners who will buy that stock. And, you not to downplay those properties, but they're probably B and C grade properties. They're townhouses, they're apartments, they're old houses that need renovations. That stock is definitely going to come onto the market. It's definitely happening in Sydney. We're starting to see it in Melbourne as well. So that's going to create some supply, but I really do think it's going to get snapped up because you look at how many people were buying house and land packages over the last 10 years. It was a big driver of the volume of our business. It's just completely stopped. So those people still need to live somewhere. So I really think that stock will get chewed up. And I'll talk about the investor side, and then I might pass to Marty because I know he's got a fair opinion on this. But they really need to encourage people to continue to build and continue to invest. And I'll pick on the Vic government at the moment. They're doing everything but that. So when we're talking about supply of property, we're not just talking about people that want to buy houses, Jace. We're also talking about renters. Rent continues to go up at the moment, and it's not going to stop. When interest rates keep going up and there's a reducing level of properties to rent in the market, rental prices will keep going up. So the issue we've got at the moment is significant detriment to invest in the country in general, but mainly in Victoria. So this all started back in 2014. So a lot of people won't know this, but in 2014, APRA came out and started reducing the amount or putting a cap on the amount of lending banks could do to investors. So how that worked was based on the total capital that was lent out, as a ratio, investment loans could only be a certain percentage of what they lent out from a owner-occupied point of view. So the more home loans they lent out, the more investment loans they could lend out, and vice versa. So that was the first thing that we saw where there was actually a detriment to investors. What came off the back of that is different interest rates. So an interest rate for an investor and a homeowner used to be similar. You go back 10 years ago. What happened when APRA came out with those restrictions on investment lending? Well, banks wanted to lend more to homeowners to give them the ability to lend out more to investors. So what did they do? They started charging investors higher interest rates, dropped their home loan rates to bring that home loan business in. So bang, investors have got now an interest rate increase, but for no fault of their own, just because it was better for banks to lend a home to homeowners. There's two things. Since then, you've had, through COVID, 133 law changes as far as tenancy agreements go. A lot of them were a detriment to landlords. Victoria's recently introduced increased stamp land tax, which we know about. Rising interest rates, capital gains. You've got the windfall tax, which is, for anyone who doesn't know that, if you're a farmer and You bought the property for $1 million and the government's rezoned it to residential, so a developer wants to pay you $20 million. Half of that profit you've got to pay to the government now as a tax because they rezone the land. Now, what happens then? Well, the farmer doesn't want to sell the property because of the tax, so the developer says, well, I'll pay the tax for you. Then what happens? Then the developer increases the prices of the land. Everything increases, detriment to the investor to invest. So the government keeps pushing all these things onto investors, and now they're stupidly talking about capping rent increases. So investors have got all these increased costs, which has come from no fault of their own, interest rates, and also mainly government, land tax, shitty tenancy agreements, and now you want to stop them being able to increase the rent purely to make their mortgage payments, which have, in some cases, have tripled over the last 2 years if they were on interest-only repayments. So you talk about policy, it needs to significantly change, because if you look at Victoria at the moment, it is the last place a property investor wants to invest, and that's an absolute fact. So people are going to go to places like Brisbane where the yields are higher, Adelaide. People are going to go regional, maybe regional New South Wales, I don't know. But the last place people are looking to invest in property from a property point of view at the moment is in Victoria, which means we're not creating new properties. So investing means building new houses. So until that changes, we're going to have a significant undersupply because no one wants to create new homes. It just doesn't make sense. Government needs to make some significant policy changes, and then we need to wait for them to flow through. But it ain't going to happen anytime soon, particularly given where we're at the moment with interest rates. Like it's so expensive, not just to build, but also to then manage the repayment. It doesn't make sense to invest in Victoria at the moment based on yields, let alone all the government disincentives that are out there. So it's a problem and it's not going to go away, which is why I say, when's the best time to do it? If you can afford to buy, you buy now. You just got to make sure you're buying, obviously, the right asset.
Nick, what do you think? What do you think the motivation is behind doing that? Is it just purely to claim the taxes back because we're in so much debt as a state? Because you've explained it brilliantly well, but none of it makes sense from a business proposition for an investor to get into the market. And we need investors in the market because we need more properties for people to rent. That's where the demand is. I just don't understand why they would be doing this, given the circumstances we're in.
I don't have your answer. It's just baffling. And you can't even say that it's people in our industry that are pushing this. Like it's just fact. You've got the highest, ever since 2014 when that first change came in, you've now got vacancy rates that just keep on dropping and dropping and dropping. Like the data is there. People are selling rental properties. There is an undersupply of rental properties. So rents are going up. So what's going to happen if you cap the rent? People are going to sell. They're going to sell more of them.
Absolutely.
Because they can't afford them. And then you're just going to make that problem bigger. So Marty, obviously the Vic government has got a big issue on their debt, but this to me is just stupidity. How can you not see what's happening here and find a better way forward? And there's plenty of industry associations that are lobbying, but I will be absolutely baffled, and I'll nearly be done. This sounds extreme, but I'll nearly be done with this state if we get 2% or whatever the cap they're looking at putting in for renters. If that comes in, that I'm just done. Like I would seriously consider, number one, moving, or number two, never investing in this state again, because that's just absolutely ridiculous, and it just shows they have absolutely no clue on what's actually happening out there. With the mum and dad investors that we talk to all the time, they're seeing the data and they're obviously completely ignoring it. So it just makes you wonder, well, who's running things, and are you even equipped to be making the decisions you're making? Obviously not, and that's the biggest concern.
Yeah, there's got to be an alternate motive here. Surely it can't be that silly. Because again, I'm trying to play devil's advocate in my own head to go, all right, well, they're trying to drive out the investors, which is what's happening, given what they're doing. So does that support, the migrants coming in and buying up first homes? But a lot of the time, migrants aren't coming in and have the ability to buy homes. They're going to rent. So it doesn't even work when you think about it from a psychological point and a business point. You go, it doesn't work on any level. And even the APRA thing, I mean, they capped lending for investors at 15%. I think it was up around the mid-20s when they brought it in. And it was just a level playing field before that came in. People were buying investments. The low occupancy rates were around, or the occupancy rates I think were about 3%. So everything was ticking along nicely, and it was fair and equitable, I found. But yeah, I'm on the same page as you. There is no way I would invest in Victoria at the moment on a property, because it just doesn't make any sense on yield, and also what you have to do as a landlord to cover the costs on that now, as well as all the parameters that the tenant has. So something has to change, and I'm not sure why they're doing it, but it's wrong.
You've touched on a lot, Nick, and you've actually kind of, built a good story of the perfect storm of why we're in this situation. And then you hit the nail on the head by talking about state debt. I actually hadn't looked into the fact that by the end of next year, it's going to be something like $170 billion in debt. And if we can't meet those repayments, it balloons to something like $300 billion within the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Now, if you do the math on like how much that is per person that lives in Victoria, that's like $25,000 per person we need to contribute back to the Victorian government to help them pay off the debt, and that's not even going to put a dent in it if they have to pay the interest. So that's probably the biggest problem, is that they've left with themselves through mismanagement. They've left themselves a shit sandwich that they can't chew down, and they're facing a very, very tough couple of years that they've now got to force the pain onto the Victorian population.
I think you've just answered a question for me, Jace. This is why net migration is such heavy levels, because anyone that has half a business brain will be looking to relocate. And this is the scary thing. They're going to have to bump up the numbers, because people are going to make better options with what is available. We're a national and global economy now, not just a localised one. So people will make better decisions, and I'm sure they know this as well. But I think you're right. I think it's all coming back to they have to rectify that debt position. It's a failing business, Victoria, if you look at it on pure numbers alone, and Victorians pay the consequences of those behaviours of the past to get it to this point. And it's actually pretty sad, really, when you look at those numbers and what's going on, because we need investors. The affordability, the lack of supply, I think it was 30% down on supply to where we usually are. I heard this morning from property valuers.
Yep.
And it all comes down to affordability too. Like, I mean, two people on 180,000 combined income could borrow around about 850,000. They could borrow 1.2 million going back 18 months ago. So you haven't got that momentum in the market that Nick was talking about, where people can upgrade. And in fact, you've still got people downsizing, which is fine because they're the cash buyers. But the momentum is at around that 800 to $1 million if you're looking generally.
Yep.
And you're going, so that's why those prices are holding, because there's a feeding frenzy in that market.
Yep.
And investors selling will generally, their investments are in that market if they're everyday mums and dads investing. So that's where the feeding frenzy is. But if rates are going to come down next year, I think CBA economists were talking about that rates might come down 1%, crystal ball stuff, but based on the way we're going, then that'll put some liquidity back in what people can borrow, and then potentially people around that sort of average market price will be able to escalate their position, and maybe you get more transactions and free up people to do more things. So, but definitely some concerns out there, given the numbers you've brought up today.
Yeah, 100%, and it's going to be a long way back. It's just, you can't just flip these things and create a heap of housing. And I think the only smart thing they are doing, well, they're not doing this yet, but they're talking about it. But moving away from greenfields and starting to focus more on medium density, and allowing people to develop in areas that are 15, 20 k's out of the CBD. Don't be draconic around. Everyone's got to have the same picket fence. Like, come on, it's 2023. So that's probably the smartest thing I've heard. Whether it comes to fruition or not, and they actually start putting pressure on councils to approve things, I don't know. But takes time. All this stuff's going to take time.
And you do have to put capital in the market to make money. That's the other thing. I mean, you need to be able to, like Nick said, when is the right time to buy? Well, the right time is when you can afford to buy, and you got to decide where that is. It might not be in the location you thought it might be, but you do have to put capital in the market to let that capital grow over time. Otherwise, you're always in the sidelines with 3% increases on your cash, and that's not going to get you anywhere. So you still have to think about where that could be. Is it Toowoomba? Is it Perth? There's houses you can get for $500,000 with a 6.1 to 7% yield, and more promising conditions around investment. So think outside of your locality and go and explore and make contacts in areas if you want to invest and put your capital in the market. So don't stop because they want you to stop here in Vic. There are options. And the question I'd ask, and to Jace specifically, are we seeing any such constrictions in the business market with the government stifling business in any way? Looking at investment properties as a isolated investment, but what about in the business market? Because I think at the moment, income is still increasing, which is important. As long as the taps are on, then everyone's okay. But are you seeing any restriction in the business market from the government from tax policy?
Fortunately, most of that'll be driven for business is done at federal level. So we're not seeing anything too drastic. And if anything, next year's changes around high income earners being taxed $9,000 less means that, people running a good business, paying themselves a good wage are actually going to end up paying less tax. Somebody earning $200,000 will pay $9,000 less tax from next year. What we're not seeing too much of is a bit of communication around upcoming government grants and handouts for money for people doing, exciting things. But ultimately, not a huge shift in that aspect.
That's all right. As long as they don't start fleecing.
25%, and bringing some tax cuts into play, I think where there'd be a bit of a storm kicked up would be if they took away those tax cuts they were talking about next year, and then all of a sudden people have got more tax to pay again. We talked about it earlier episode, the low middle income tax offset, that's gone. So from a business sense, nothing major on the horizon from what I can see. But I mean, we saw Labor come in and try and talk about messing with capital gains tax, messing with the main residence exemption, messing with franking credits, and we saw that didn't go too well for them at the polling booth. So I think the tax system is pretty safe sitting as it is. Everyone's too scared to touch it, even though I'm a big believer that it needs to be reinvigorated across the board.
Yeah, as long as we have liquidity in business earnings as well as, that can filter through into incomes in the small business segment, then that'll be our strength in moving through this, and hopefully rates come down next year and we get a little bit more liberal policy, not as in the Liberal Party, but just liberal policy, so to speak, that people have some flexibilities. Great stuff, guys. Really good.
Well, that's been another great episode. Thank you, Nick, for bringing that to the table. I know I definitely learnt a lot. Quick message to everyone out there, if this is an area where you're not confident, you've got more questions, there are professionals out there that specialise in advisory around buying and selling properties, as well as the fantastic team at Innovate. They deal with buying and selling properties all day, every day. So great place to start when you're talking about getting your affairs in order to be ready to strike if you can get your hands on the right property while stock is low. Get in touch, and in the meantime, like and follow the Numbers Game, share with friends and family that may get some value from this, and until next time,
game over.